October 9, 2017, 18. My name is Marty Akins. I'm the chairman. On my left, Vice Chair Mr. Peleas. Board members, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Chairman, to the Himmel, Mr. Frankel. The head of inspectional services, Mr. Duca, from the Quincy. And our clerk to my right, our left, Ms. Murphy. We have a cell phone or a pager. Could you please put it on silent and vibrate, not to interrupt the meeting? And if anyone's going to testify today, could you please stand up and raise your right hand? If you think you might testify, please take an oath. Right?
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Do I have a motion to waive the reading
Yes,
of
Mr.
September
Chairman.
25th?
I make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes for September 25th.
Second.
On the motion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We have 11 here, the motion. Case number Z1860, Package Lane. We want to move that till the next meeting, 10/23.
Mr. Chairman, amendment Z18-60, Package Lane Townhouse Group LLC, Wyman Chan, trustee, for a variance to remove the existing structure and construct a 5-unit townhouse-style residential building on the premises number 53 Package Lane. Make a motion to continue the hearing to October 23rd.
Second.
On the motion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We're on a new business, case number Z1861, Hanley Kai for variance to construct, it says 14, it's 18, correct?
That's correct.
18-unit residential structure by renovating and reconstructing the existing non-conforming commercial structure on the premise number 137, 139 Sagamore Street. The applicant and representative here, counsel.
Good evening, members of the board. William Phelan, on behalf of the applicants, Wade Chu and Kevin Chu, who are present. We're also here with Philip Peresco, the architect. This is a project in the North Quincy section of the city, off of Newbury Ave on Sagamore Street. There exists currently a non-conforming structure. It's in a Business A district, non-conforming structure that pretty much takes up the entire lot, with the exception of one quadrant of the lot. If you're looking at the lot, the right front quadrant is blacktop, it's not building. What we're proposing to do is essentially square off the building and reconstruct it with parking underneath, 2 levels of parking, one underneath and one on the first floor, along with the lobby, and then 3 floors above that. We met with the planning department staff on a couple of occasions, made some adjustments to the plan as a result of those meetings, particularly as it relates to the entrance and exit of the building. We pushed it back a little bit. The architect can explain better than I how we changed it so as to give a proper view up and down the street for cars exiting the building particularly. It will require variance. As you know, currently a Business A district, if it's going to be residential, will need a finding from the planning board, first off. And secondly, we'll need relief by way of floor area ratio. We're also extending the non-conforming frontage and the non-conforming side setback, front setback and side setback, not the frontage, excuse me. Front setback and side setback, so that we're kind of bringing it along the same line as the building. We're extending the non-conformity, but that does require a variance. We need a variance for floor area ratio as well as green space per unit, since the building takes up essentially the entire area. I'm going to introduce Philip Peresco to go over the plans and what the existing site is now, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present our project here.
Name and address for the
My
record,
name
please.
is Philip Peresco. I'm an architect and landscape architect. And
Address?
is 36 Brownfield Street in Boston. And what is presently on the site this is the building on Sagamore Street, the face of it here. and the side of it goes down into a parking area, parking lot, and you end up down into a brick building at the lower part, the rear part of the site. And these are some rear walls and side walls. Mr. Wang owns this building immediately adjacent through here, so the thought was that we would be able to clean this up and make this a bit nicer, this passageway between the two buildings. So that's part of the plan. So I'm going to go through the plans first. I'll try to be as brief. This is upper roof, looking at it, more photos here of that. And then the brick building that I showed you at the rear with the doors is here. The front storefront is here. This is Sagamore Street at this point. And we're pretty much going on top of these walls throughout. What we have is an opportunity. There's some fairly open structure in this garage area underneath here. So instead of going down this slip parking lot, what we've done is create a ramp on the right-hand side off Sagamore Street. At this point, we come into a parking garage here, which is concrete and steel ceiling, and we have 27 parking spaces total here, by 17 on this level. And then we have a slight ramp up into the rear section off Sagamore Street again. This is the ramp going down at this point. This goes slightly up, and in the rear of that, we have 10 spaces for the total, 17 downstairs and 27 upstairs. We have an elevator here and our two means of egress. What we've done is preserved this storefront that I showed on that photo there existing. So this is our lobby for the building, and we have a community space at the first floor through here. What we've done is pull back our entrance to the ramp and entrance to the garage away from the street so there would be a view path across here. We've angled our storefront at this point, and this is open through here. There are columns, but it's open walls at that point so that people could see past someone coming or going along the street at that point. On our second floor, we have 6 units, and the units are 2-bedroom units with a 1-bedroom, 2 1-bedroom units, and a 3-bedroom unit. So a 1-bedroom unit is about 685 square feet, a 2-bedroom is 1,200 square feet in this configuration, and the 3-bedroom is similarly sized. There are little patios, balconies, insets into the building to let the occupants have some sort of outside space. I've made a terrace back here that's accessible for everyone in the building. So this is their outside space. There will be some planting and a place to have outside cooking or a gathering spot for the folks who would live there. So there's balconies set around the building on all of the units. So everyone has some outside space in addition to that space that's in this courtyard. So the floor immediately below is repeated at this level. And again, on a 4th floor. So we have an elevator centered to the building and our egress through there. And the roof that is basically boiler room, mechanical, and space for the elevator fishing room. And essentially it's just a big roof. The building itself, this part is existing through here, and we're going to add on top of that. Our ramp is here, going down, and then a ramp going straight in at that point. We have a trash room up this area to keep the trash off the street, make it immediately available side of the building is similarly existing. So this is the portion that is under the garage. The overall building is parking on the upper second floor in the rear, and then the rest are 3 floors of residential space. So that's how it's built.
What do you get the outside of the building?
The front is all masonry,
Brick?
brick,
Yeah.
and the sides, we were talking about stucco kind of material, but it's being studied whether we can use masonry there too, or turning the corners and getting some return back away from the front to here or to here, you know, with further masonry and perhaps changing the material at that point. But they're studying the cost as to whether that's possible. So the idea is pretty much a masonry building.
I did want to also point out on the plans that you have, a couple of corrections. The floor area ratio I looked at, and I called Philip and asked him to recalculate it. It clearly was not correct. It's done differently in different cities. The patio, the parking area down below, we understand has to be included because it's in the Business A Res B district in Quincy. So after recalculating, the floor area ratio is 4.17, not 0.94 as shown on that. In addition, the green space per dwelling unit on the plan says something like 325.
345.
Yeah, 345. It's existing is 0 green space, and it's going to remain 0 green space. The architect, although we have the patio, we do have some space in between the rear and the right side of the building. It's really nothing considerable enough to reference as green space, so I will change that to 0 as well. Again, in Boston, you can include the patio on the second floor, you can include the balconies and other areas for green space, and that's where that figure originally came from, and we corrected that. So we'll be looking for relief in the area of green space per dwelling unit.
And the units on this is 18, not 14.
That's correct. As you can see, the existing structure is pretty run down. There's a successful building that was allowed actually on Newbury Street, same owners, same builders, that seems to be doing quite well. There were no parking spaces in that. This building does have an extra floor, so we're asking relief for the height restriction. However, it's sloping down on Sagamore Street, so the height of it, although a little bit higher than the building that it's going to be next to on the left of it, not too much higher, not even a story, probably 5, maybe 6 feet high. And we think it's a great addition to the city. Ample parking, 1.5 spaces. Being that close to the T, I think is a good amount of parking spaces for the units that we have. And any questions that anyone has?
Mayor, when did you meet with them?
The planning board their agenda was full. We met with Mr. Fatsis and Stevens of the planning department. They actually made more than just a couple of adjustments with regards to the setback of the entrance and exit, and also the parking, which was a big factor. We eliminated most of actually all of the units on the first floor and converted that to parking, and we, increased the size of the lobby and things like that. So I asked the planning director, I know, the owners are anxious to get going. I said, do you have an issue with me going to the zoning board first and coming back for a finding? And he had no problem whatsoever. He encouraged me to do it. That's why we came to the zoning board first. We understand that the actual site, during the site plan review and the finding that the planning board is going to have to consider will be within that discretion. We'd ask that you consider adopting this or approving this conditioned on approval by the planning board.
If we did, that's what it would be, yeah. condition. If they agree, they don't change anything else. Any questions? Yeah. Maybe I had the trash room, I saw that.
Yeah,
How
that was one
that's
of
gonna
the,
work?
that was actually one of the, I'll let Phil answer, that was another issue that was brought up by planning, and that was completely reconfigured as well, so Phil, why don't you take that?
How's that gonna work?
Well, folks who park here put their trash directly into bins, and they'll be wheeled out onto the street on a regular basis. This is basically,
I mean, does someone come and pick it up, or?
yeah, they come in,
Yeah.
they're out of service. That's
That's right, yeah, but there'll be bins in that,
In the room,
in
right.
that
And
room.
what,
They can bring them down.
They can bring them right up, yeah. We had something figured in the rear, but it just wasn't enough space. Planning brought that up as an issue, and we adjusted the plan. Another reason, actually, why the architect wisely reconfigured the entire first floor of the structure to
Have a trash room too.
yeah.
No, yeah, I just wanted to know how it was working, how you thought it was gonna work.
So I have a question about that. And so how often do you anticipate collection of the trash? Because again,
I would think weekly.
well, it has to kind of be weekly because you're having,
Maybe less than that.
18.
18 units,
I
right?
have to think about you probably use
Every
one
day.
week. Well, this is.
Everyone drops a bag every day.
what's that?
A bag, yeah.
Drop
It's
a
all
bag.
totally enclosed.
Yeah.
It's a fireproof, it's a fireproof.
Yeah, and it's all.
Fireproof.
No, I know, but
And the question we always get into, modern world, you're not doing composting here. But we have a bin for trash and then you have a bin for recycling, and you try to encourage, it's only 18 units. And sometimes that's above threshold for things, but things do change. So the idea is to have enough for people who can recycle. 'Cause-
And whatever it is, you'd have to work with it. I mean, if it was twice a week, it's twice a week.
Yeah, and
That's the way it worked out.
people like to recycle a lot.
People like to drop their trash every day and give it up.
Yeah,
That's half wonderful.
And I guess the other question is, I have, Mr. Mayor, is that, will there'll be a management company there taking care of?
yes, the
that?
owner, it's going to be apartments, not condominiums. So the owner will be responsible and will manage his property, as he does the one above on
Newberry.
Newbury Street.
Any other questions?
No questions from me.
No questions.
I have a question. How much of a budget problem would it be to make the entire building brick as opposed to stucco?
I'd have to ask the architect that, or the builder.
If we made it all brick.
3 to 3.5 million.
But
No,
just to change
no,
from
the difference-
stucco, if we didn't have the side walls and rear walls stucco, if we made it brick, all brick around. How much? Enough money, can we do that? Thank you.
应该多个100,000 more.
So,
And would that be possible?
yeah, absolutely. I think that would be something that we could consider and bring up. I'm happy to make it a condition or bring it up to
So I mean,
the.
aesthetically, it would just, I think, look better than the stucco.
The front, you're not gonna see it anyway, right? 'Cause it's in the
I
alley.
think that you see into the future, and I believe the planning board will make that a condition.
But that's fine if you want to make it a condition here, we'd be happy to keep that in there.
Might as well be.
Especially with regards to going down the street,
Yeah.
but both is fine. We want to make it all sides.
You all said, counsel. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak in favor? First call? Second call? Third call, all that part of hearing closed. We have a letter here from the DPW.
We have reviewed the submittal for the above referenced project, and our comments are as follows. One, specify how much impervious area will be increased due to the development. Two, provide plans showing the site conditions, layout of utilities and grading, drainage, and the construction details. Number three, explain how the surface runoff will be discharged and treated. Number four, install survey monuments to delineate the public right-of-way. The monuments shall be set by a professional land surveyor. Number five, provide dimensions and grades for the paving area of all driveway entrances, Six, upon completion of the project, add to build plans showing on utilities, building footprints, references, bounds, and benchmarks, the Define a total site, facilities, and right-of-way need to be submitted along with a digital file. The as-built plan shall be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or professional engineer.
Call it final hearing closed. Is there anyone opposed or undecided? Opposed or undecided? First call, second call. You back there? Oh, no.
Everybody got everybody, didn't he?
That's what I'm saying, where is it? Call that final hearing closed. I think it's great to clean up that whole area too, and I think that it's a little tight to get. Is it a nice building? Yeah, I think it's gonna look pretty, as long as we put in there all brick and with the conditions of the planning board, I'd be happy with that.
I'm happy with it, Mr. Chairman. That neighborhood needs something. This property has been around before, and it was, the plans weren't good. And this is certainly an improvement. And I like the fact that we have parking spaces and we're walking distance to the T. I think the two things together is unique. And I'm also happy, if I'm hearing correctly, there's not going to be a wood building,
Yeah,
which seems to be so popular around the East Coast these days. And I'm afraid that, before they're done, they burn. So
wait till the next hurricane comes.
I'll be voting in favor.
Likewise.
So, Brian,
Yeah, I'm good.
As well.
have a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's matter number Z18-61, Anglin Con for a variance to construct a 18-unit residential structure by renovating and reconstructing an existing non-conforming commercial structure on premises number 137-139 Sagamore Street. I make a motion to grant the variance on the conditions, including the conditions of what the planning board will decide, and that the building will be all brick exterior.
Second it?
Second.
On the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Motion adjourned, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
On the motion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. May, how you doing?